The Dauntless. Some things are truly universal, and it had been a delight to discover that a proper sandwich was one of them. Apparently, having your meal both easy to clean up after and relatively clean to carry around has long been popular the galaxy over. So one of the harder menu items for availability was basically a deli sandwich, and it had been a very welcome treat. They had a little rule of no discussing business over meals. Unfortunately, the onion equivalent in the Canador-style sandwich does his breath no favors, and he has to have a round with a toothbrush and mouthwash before conversations can begin in earnest. So almost the entirety of Bruel lives in primitivism? Lady Tycanped asks in a baffled tone. Sort of. Almost every Golby is born primitive. Spears and tribal lines level of primitive, but there's an option for those that want more. Which is climbing a mountain? Admiral Cistern asks, trying to make full sense of it. Yes, it's on the mountains that the advanced cities and spaceports are. Not to mention there's a spiritual element to everything as well. You see, when you live in the tribes, you announce what part of what tribe you are with special paints. The humidity keeps them wet, so you have to keep reapplying and fixing them. But when you climb the mountains, the colder air and higher winds dry off the paint and cause it to flake away, erasing your tribal identity. It's hard to explain, but it's a powerful thing to do. It means a lot to the Gobes of Bruel to climb your mountain and take control of your life. It does sound religious. I'm just surprised that someone would choose to live without modern luxuries. If you're forced away from it, then it's not your fault, but choosing to go without. Lady Tycanped asks, somewhat astounded. Ambassador Tal shrugs. It's not something I agreed with. I climbed my mountain when I was young and only went back to try and talk others into doing the same. It didn't get much of anywhere, though. Many of the tribal peoples think that when you live a life surrounded by metal and unliving things, your own life essence is weakened by it. Ambassador Tal explains and notices a somewhat faraway look in Admiral Cistern's eyes. Are you here, big man? Just imagining what it would be like if you're only in that tribal wear. Picturing me in fur and paint? Glad to see it's so distracting. Ambassador Tal notes with a bit of a grin. What can I say? I'm a man, I know what I like. He replies with a slight chuckle just before his communicator goes off. It's just a text message telling him that Sir Philip has information for him after he's had his lunch. Something wrong? Lady Tycanped asks, and he shakes his head. No, just a reminder that while most have finished their workday, mine's only about half done, he says evenly as he reaches for his drink, a sort of lightly flavored mineral water. Well, I suppose the downside of your astounding endurance is that it's going to be used on more than your wives, Lady Tycanped says, before hiding a smile behind a hand fan even as Admiral Cistern snickers a little and Ambassador Tal snorts. Right, well, he needs all that time to wear him down. Otherwise he'd never sleep and we'd be out a lot of loving. Really, Nikta? Must you be so crude? In public? You bring the class, I bring the sass. Wasn't that the deal? Ambassador Tal replies, and Admiral Cistern chuckles at the interaction. Besides, we needed to double-team him. Oh, so I'm being ganged up on now? Strategically outnumbered, a perfectly viable tactic. Lady Tycanped rebuffs before her own communicator buzzes. She sighs to see the message on it. It also appears we're out of time. Or rather, I'm out of time. She quickly gets a kiss from Admiral Cistern and leaves the restaurant in a hurry. Whatever came up needs her personal attention. Wonder what that was about. There's usually a line about 1,000 women long looking to curry favor one way or another whenever she's involved. Just sorting through it must be exhausting. Admiral Cistern notes and Ambassador Tal considers. Only if she doesn't hire someone to do it for her. Not all such things can be trusted with others. There are many things that you simply can't delegate. Personal health being one of them, and personal benefits can very easily be another if you can't find someone you can trust to sort through things for you. and on centrist trust goes for a premium and has a shelf life of minutes at most. Cults, you think? My men are tripping over the secret societies and cults on this world, and every now and then we realize one of the rakes coming for our face has a landmine taped to it. Rake? What? What does a gardening tool have to do with this? Step on a certain type and its handle can fly up to smack you in the face. It's a staple of slapstick comedy. The landmine takes it from funny to deadly, though. So I was trying to say, in a pithy and humorous way, that running into all the cults is generally more amusing than anything else, but every now and again there's extreme danger. Admiral Cistern explains, and Ambassador Tal nods before grinning. I need to watch some more human comedies, although I keep getting distracted with those historical fictions. Ambassador Tal says with a giggle as she tosses the last of her platter into her mouth. The woman liked her finger foods and would always go for a platter of something she could pick at with her digits if she could. Lunch had to end eventually, and despite how much he enjoyed Ambassador Tal cuddling into his side, he has more work to do. And despite not being from a prominent system, an ambassador's work is never truly done in so massive a galaxy. So he alone heads back to his office and collects the papers and data chips that were dropped off for him before heading back to the Dauntless. He arrives to find a moderately thick folder on his desk courtesy of the Intelligence Division, and he sets everything else into the inbox and starts reading from it. It's a breakdown of Lady Area 4. She's from a system overrun with the Church of the True Mother, an extremist sect of the Gravid faith. In particular, it was not the system in which had facilitated Petty Officer McDaniel's kidnapping and subsequent escape. Rampage? Retaliation would be the most appropriate word, but seemed to be so very lacking. Regardless, apparently, there were a series of small-scale civil wars breaking out over her sector, and it could be traced back to the theological messes propping about. She was a political appointee that had gotten the position after her predecessor had been recalled and then subsequently vanished, likely murdered. The war was a church-based schism that had been at the bursting point for some centuries, with the appearance of the Undaunted just being the final straw. Aria 4 seemed so incompetent because she actually was. The woman was running on her great-grandmother's credentials to get into the office and was just plain not qualified for the job. There was also a series of hypotheticals based on her behavior for what she might do. The woman was scared for her life, throwing things every which way and trying to fix a mess she had no power over, no concept of its full scale, and no help coming. She was a dead woman walking, and knew it, which also made her potentially dangerous and fairly unpredictable. Heavy odds were on her vanishing within the week, and an entire laundry list for reasons why. There was, however, a rather fascinating suggestion on Madame Stepanova's part. Taking the woman in and being her support to encourage the religious schism to break in the Undaunted's favor was a fascinating prospect. He wrote his approval on it with the caveat that there's to be no torture or intimidation involved. Gentle touch on this one so they can back out if things start going sour. He then starts going through everything that was dropped off at his office during the alien workday. 2 offers from pornographic companies to have soldiers assigned to either help in production or as guards around the facilities. He quickly types out some firm but polite refusals in response. If they want to have human guards or actors, then they'll have to hire them when his soldiers have finished their tour of duty. Just like everybody else. Next up is something he's been looking forward to. Canid Solutions was reporting that they'll soon be unveiling their new line of kinetics made in tandem with a few mechanics he had loaned them. The exchange for 3 years of developmental aid for gunpowder weaponry in exchange for a full 5% of company stocks had been a risky but ultimately very, very prosperous gamble. It was straight-out funding a third of the RNMD going on at this very moment. Couple that with people finally seeing the benefit to solid weaponry, and the stock value was increasing. meaning even more money to pour into developing even better toys. It was a pure win from every angle. There are several propositions for his hand in favor by previously unknown parties that make grand claims to being one kind of person or another. As societal norms dictate, he files them to be sent to Ambassador Tal. As first wife, it's her duty to screen out those that come in. He does, however, write down their details so that he can send the intelligence division after them and figure out a bit of off-the-books information about his would-be suitors. After he scours the pile of further propositions, finding another two and setting them aside as well, he then moves on to the next portion. A request for permission from the director of Full Shelves to make a spin-off series with his soldier as the lead character. It looks like a cross between a police procedural and a western. Basically, they want to make him the local sheriff of the area and have the Full Shelves as side characters in the spin-off. The pending name is The Other Side of the Fence. He considers it a bit before giving his approval. After that is an extremely large clothing chain that wants to have a few men being seduced by models in their lingerie and underwear lines. He considers it for a bit and sends back a counteroffer that he would be willing to assist in exchange for a few percentile points of company stock. Simple one-time payments are tempting, but they're only good for immediate concerns. He needs long-term investments that pay back reliably. A clothing chain that goes up and down the major axiom laneways and even has a space station in orbit of Centris? Yes, that sounds like a solid investment so long as he doesn't have to actually buy in. The teeth and lace lines, something to pay attention to. He notes to himself as he sets that bit of business aside. The next bit is very, very interesting. A response to his inquiries to a chain of universities known as the Galactic Education, Exceptionalism, and Exploration. They have in fact used long-range scanners and telescopes to scout out a fair portion of cruel space, but not the totality of it. It's on the galactic edge, so the portion closest to the core is what's been peered into. Funnily enough, Earth has been spotted once or twice, but the galaxy being in motion means that it's currently beyond scanning range. However, there had been many planets spotted, but clearly not scanned up close for life or if there was even an atmosphere. Still, mining on those worlds would be of immense value. There isn't much beyond this, though, as many of the programs to actually look into cruel space are only now being restarted. They have long been a sort of gimme for a degree in astral navigation, basically look through long-range sensors and track what movements have occurred since the last scan. Apparently they happen about once a century, and therefore the maps are fairly up-to-date with very accurate predictions to where they would go. It won't be as easy as mining and colonizing outside of cruel space, but it would be a completely uncontested area of development and expansion for the human race. Granted, he would have to pump more into the null-resistant tech research, but now there were a great many prizes to take. The postscript at the end of this document is an apology for things taking so long, as the university where this had been stored in question had undergone an audit and things had fallen to the wayside.